Before this video starts, a clarification that matters. This is not a video for people in poverty. If your income genuinely doesn't cover your basic needs, regardless of how carefully you manage it, this video is not for you. And the advice in it doesn't apply to your situation because you don't have a spending problem. You have an income problem, and those require completely different solutions. And this video is for a specific and very large group of people, and those with incomes that should be sufficient, who are constantly running short, who feel financially squeezed despite earning more they thought they needed at 22, or who have privately wondered whether they're just bad at money. And most of you are not at bad at money, and you have a specific diagnosable set of spending patterns that consume income faster than you generate it. And those patterns have names, structures, and fixes. Here they are. Spending pattern number one, the lifestyle creep treadmill. This is the pattern that affects most people and the one that's most invisible to the people it's affecting. Your income has increased and perhaps substantially over the last 5 years, and your financial comfort has not increased proportionately. In fact, it may feel roughly the same or worse despite the higher income. And this is not bad luck. This is lifestyle creep executing exactly as designed. Lifestyle creep is the automatic expansion of expenses to match available income. Every raise gets spent, every bonus gets absorbed, and every income increase disappears onto upgraded versions of the same life: a nicer apartment, a newer car, better restaurants, and more frequent travel. A wardrobe that matches the income level. None of these individuals' upgrades feel like decisions. They feel like arriving at the level you were always supposed to be at. And that feeling is the mechanism because it prevents the upgrade from registering as a spending choice that could have gone another direction. Here's the test: take your income from 5 years ago and your income today. The difference between those numbers over 5 years should have produced a meaningful and visible improvement in your financial position. Savings, investments, debt reductions. If that improvement is not visible, lifestyle creep consumed it. The money moved, it just moved into spending rather than building. And the fix requires one behavioral change that sounds simple and is psychologically different. When increases, automate savings of at least 50% of the after tax increase before the lifestyle has time to expand into it. The other 50% can go whether it goes, but the first 50% leaves the account on the day the higher income arrives, before any spending decisions incorporated as available money. Do this consistently, and lifestyle creep becomes lifestyle growth, a compounding financial position that keeps pace with the life you're building. Spending pattern two, payment blindness. Payment blindness is the condition in which the method of payment is so thoroughly decouples the feeling of spending from the act of spending that purchases are made without the friction that cash transactions naturally create. Research on payment methods or spending consistently finds that people spend significantly more when paying by card than by cash, with estimates ranging from 12 to 18% more on average across comparable purchases. And the tap of a phone generates even less resistance than a card swipe. The subscription auto renewal generates essentially none. As payment has become increasingly frictionless, the psychological guard against overspending has been systematically removed by design. The people most affected by payment blindness are not the ones making large, irresponsible purchases. They're the ones making dozens of small, frictionless purchases that accumulate into a large, irresponsible total. 23 transactions between $3 and is $35 a week. Each one felt fine. The week total did not. The fix is not switching back to cash for all purchases, which is impractical for most modern lives. The fix is periodic friction, a weekly 5-minute review of every card transaction from the previous 7 days, not to judge each purchase, but to make it visible. Purchases that happen outside of conscious awareness cannot be managed. Purchases that are reviewed weekly exist in conscious awareness at least once, which is enough to service the pattern that drives the overspending and makes them available for adjustment. Spending pattern number three, the future self discount. One of the most reliably documented findings in the behavioral economics is that humans beings systematically undervalue their future self relative to their personal self or their present self in decision making. The future you will wish you'd saved more, invested earlier, and spent less on things you can't remember buying. And it feels like a stranger, someone whose interest counts for less than the current you who wants the things right now. And the future self discount explains why people who genuinely understand compound interest still don't invest consistently. It explains why people who've experienced the street of financial fragility still don't build emergency funds. It explains why the behaviors that virtually everyone agrees are correct in principle are so rarely executed in practice. The present self wins the most of the negotiations. The practical intervention is making the future self more concrete and less abstract. Specific tactics that work, like writing a letter from your future self describing what their financial life looks like, what decisions of the present self made if possible, calculating a specific future dollar amount for a specific investment behavior. Not investing saves money, but saving $200 per month starting now produces $67,000 in 15 years at 7% return. Looking at aging apps of photographs of yourself at an older age before making financial decisions. Research has shown this specific intervention increases future-oriented financial behavior by making the future self feel less like a stranger and more like a person whose interest matters. And none of these interventions override their present bias completely, okay? And they reduce it enough to shift behavior at the margin, which over years and compounding returns produces dramatically different outcomes. Spending pattern number 4: emotional outsourcing. A significant proportion of your non-essential spending in most people's lives is not the thing being purchased. It's about the emotional state the purchase is meant to relieve, a reward or produce that is not a character flaw. It is deeply human response to the fact that purchasing power is one of the most reliable and immediate available emotional regulation tools in a consumer society. Stress shopping, boredom, shopping, reward shopping after a difficult week, comfort purchasing during a difficult period, retail therapy as a genuine, if temporary, mood improvement. Each of these spending patterns is driven not by need or even desire for the item, but by need for the emotional outcome the purchase provides. The financial cost of emotional outsourcing varies enormously by person and by period of life, but the structural problem is consistent. The emotional relief produced by the purchase is temporary, which means the pattern repeats, which means the financial cost accumulates. And the person who shops when stressed does not stop being stressed after stopping. They shopping, they stop being stressed for a period, and then the next stressor arrives and the pattern repeats at the same financial cost. The fix is not suppression. Telling yourself you're not allowed to feel better about your spending never works and generates the guilt cycle that often produces more compensatory, spending. The fix is substitution, identifying the specific emotional need the spending is meeting and finding a zero cost or lower cost way to meet the same need. Not a general list of alternative activities, but a specific personal list of what actually works for you in the specific emotion states that trigger your spending. And that list takes 30 minutes to build and saves years of financial leverage and leakage. Spending pattern number 5, the optimization trap. This one affects the financially aware more than any other group, which is why it belongs on this list despite being less intuitive than the others. The optimization trap is the pattern of spending money to save money in ways that ultimately spend more than they save. A person who builds a bulk warehouse membership to save on household goods and spends $600 per year in membership fees on a $400 in savings, or the person who invests in kitchen equipment to cook at home and save on restaurants and then eat out just as frequently, the cooking takes more time than they have. The person who buys a more fuel efficient car to save on gas and spends more on the car payment than the fuel savings justifies. The person who subscribes to a budgeting app to save money and pays $120 per year for a tool they use twice and abandon. The optimization trap is powered by the mathematical effectiveness of the savings calculation at the time of the purchase and the human tendency to overestimate follow through on behavioral changes that accompany the purchase. The savings are real. If the behavior changes as intended, the behavior doesn't. And the cost of the tool that was supposed to enable the behavior change arrives regardless of whether the change occurred. The rule that prevents the optimization trap before any purchase justified by savings it will generate. Calculate the break even point and honestly assess the probability of the required behavior change. If the break even requires 12 months of perfect behavior from a person who has not exhibited the behavior before, the investment is unlikely to pay off. Small, cheap versions of the behavior change that can be tested before the major purchase is made are almost always available and almost always worth trying first. The common thread, I mean, every spending pattern on the list has the same root. Spending decisions made by default rather than by design. Lifestyle creep happens by default. Payment blindness is enabled by default. The future self discount is the default. Emotional sourcing is the default response to emotional need. The optimization trap is triggered by the default overconfidence in future behavior. And the financial life that doesn't feel like it should be this hard is the one running on defaults. And the financial life that builds steadily towards something is the one where the defaults have been examined, challenged, and in many cases replaced with deliberate structure. You're not bad at money. You're running money software that was never updated. And this video is the update prompt. Thanks for watching. If you found value to this video, please subscribe. We are looking to build this channel and we can't do it without you. Plain and simple. Thanks for watching. Check out this video to the right and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.